Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I am not going to Essen this year, which is a weird way to start this video. I've never gone to Essen any year. This is just one more year in a long line, an unbroken line of 32 years of not going to Essen. This is just year number 33. That said, I would like to go to Essen at some point in the future. Hopefully next year. We'll see. Conventions kind of went off at the same time as becoming a content creator, and all these things kind of just messed up plan-wise, and then conventions decided to all open up in the same exact month. They're like, hey, you missed conventions? Awesome. Here's October. There's 3 of them. Enjoy. And I would love to enjoy, but I had to pick one. So I picked Origins this year. Hopefully next year I'll go to Essen. I have no idea. It's hard to justify, but maybe I will. Maybe I won't. This is not the point. The point is, I'm not going to Essen. But there are 482 games, at least as of now. I'm sure there's more. 482 games, according to Board Game Geek, that will be coming out at Essen. And I decided to go through those games, and if I found enough that I was excited about, then I'd talk about them. And I found more than enough that's excited about. I had to knock this list down to, well, 11 titles. Top 10, but we'll do a top 11 because why not? But let's go ahead and show you this list. Timestamps down below. You can jump to any relevant thing. This is just going to be the list of 10 games from Essen, 10 games that are premiering at Essen, showing at Essen. Most of them you should be able to buy, but not all of them, that I'm excited about. And in case, before we go into the actual list, you can go ahead and check out this link over here. I'll have a link to this as well. This is Board Game Geek's Spiel 21 preview. Essen Spiel is the fair. It's often referred to as Essen, sometimes referred to as Spiel, sometimes referred to as Essen Spiel. I've been saying Essen the whole time, but either way. There's 482 titles currently, 25 of 42. You can keep scrolling through them, and they have a great system set up where you can tag must have, interested, undecided, not interested, and then you can utilize the various filters to tag and search for anything from various stats about the game, from the price range, the player count, the demo, not demo, for sale, all that, as well as what things you've already tagged the game as, which means you can go through this and tag what you're interested in or not, because maybe you're interested in things. There's 482 games in this list, and I managed to find at least 20 from those 482 that I was actually interested in. That means that we're going to start going through this list right about now. Starting with the number 11. The number 11 is going to be a game that, it's my number 11 because we don't know anything about it. At least not yet. All we know is this is Far Cry Beyond. This is going to be the board game version of Far Cry, put out by Funforge. Funforge, who did Monumental. Will it have miniatures? Almost certainly, because that's how you sell board games. Will the miniatures be amazingly cool? Possibly. The miniatures from Monumental were really solid. Some of the best miniatures I have in my collection. But also, I mean, what miniatures could you have in Far Cry? Generally, first-person shooter miniatures usually don't have the same appeal that most miniatures have the possibility of having. The exception is actually going to be Rainbow Six Siege from Mythic Games. Those miniatures were on fire. But most of the time when you have first-person modern miniatures, at least by my own taste, and it seems the general audiences, I don't know for sure though, the miniatures don't really necessarily hold up. Now, if you go back to Far Cry 2, there are some fun little monsters in there you could probably include there. Maybe even Crytek. Crytek's not really Far Cry. They had overlap at some point, but I can see that working. Do you remember Crytek and Crysis? Those are a long time. Crysis was a cool game. You have a little, like, oh, they could do Crysis with miniatures, with that little exosuit, and then they could have invisible miniatures for the invisible exosuit. You could do a lot of cool things. This is getting longer than I thought it would be. Apparently, I could talk more about Far Cry than I thought I would, but I'm talking about the Far Cry video game, and Crysis the video game, because I don't have anything to talk about when it comes to the Funforge board game that's going to be put out. This is a game that I'm very excited about, but I don't know anything about it. And hopefully we'll find out more at Essen Spiel. Moving on to an actual starting off the list with games that we do know a little bit about, and various ranges of a little bit. This is going to be the Kids Chronicles, the Quest for the Moonstones. This is going to be the first in Lucky Duck Games kids line of games. They have a slightly modified logo, so that duck that's on fire and being burnt to a crisp is slightly different, but this is going to be Kids Chronicles, Quest for the Moonstones. It's utilizing the same mechanism that you've seen in Chronicles of Crime, being applied to a bit of a kids game, scan and play QR code technology. They're taking a system that has worked across multiple other games. I don't know whether it's going to be more straight up QR code like Chronicles of Crime, or more focused on symbols or symbology like what they're trying to do in Destinies. I don't know. We'll find out. What I do know is the art is adorable. The game's bound to be adorable. It's likely to be the things I liked about Chronicles of Crime without the incessant annoying difficulty of just randomly guessing back and forth forever. By the very nature of it being a kids game, and again, Chronicles of Crime does have a huge passionate audience, I happen to not love the fact that I could have a case that would be a lot of fun, followed by a case that would just be forever going back and forth and not really enjoying the process of just infinite guesswork. I had both experiences, and I don't like games quite as much when they give me mixed experiences. That said, Kids Chronicles, I imagine, will be an easier, more accessible version of it because it's meant for kids, so I don't think they're going to be as difficult. And I think I'd enjoy sitting down. The base game is going to come with 5 cases you can jump into. I think I'd enjoy sitting down with my children and going through all of those 5 cases, and then looking forward to the next release. Lucky Duck Games has generally been doing a solid job as far as putting out games that I particularly enjoy, and I'm curious to see when they start their kids line. This is one of 2 games they've already announced for the kids line. I'm curious to see how they fare with playing games with my kids. That's going to be Quest for the Moonstone, Kids Chronicles from Lucky Duck Games. Then we're going to have Paper Dungeon, the dungeon scrawler game. Paper Dungeon, this is going to be coming from what's the company? Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the company. They do a whole bunch of, Super Meeple. No, Alley Cat. There we go. Alley Cat Games. Paper Dungeons coming from Alley Cat Games. They have a bunch of games under their belt. This is one that didn't really go through the Kickstarter route. This is going through more directly retail, which Alley Cat Games mostly does Kickstarter routes, I think. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know they do a lot, but when I say mostly, maybe I'm wrong with that. But either way, this is going to be a game which combines the advanced roll and write mechanisms you'll find in games like Fleet the Dice Game or in games like Gansha and Clever. The interlinking, upgrade this so you can upgrade that, so you can get this on this track so you can do that. But it's applying that to a bit of a dungeon crawler scenario. Initial ratings on the game seem pretty positive. It falls in the range of what you would expect for a good roll and write, which is basically high 7s. High to mid 7s is usually a good score for roll and writes. They don't seem to, or flip and draws roll and writes, the entire genre of games. They usually don't see, 8s or low 8s. They just don't have that degree of general love. They're usually good games or very good games, but they're not often considered to be great games. So a 7.6 on this game on Board Game Geek is a rating I'm happy to investigate further to see if it's a game for me. The idea of a dungeon crawler roll and write, I like dungeon crawlers, I like roll and writes, the art looks great. I mean, art's relative though, because how much art is there really in the actual game? I don't actually know because I don't have it in front of me, although I do want to get my hands on this one. This looks very fun. This is going to be Paper Dungeon, a dungeon scrawler game. Dungeon scrawler game. You see, when I say dungeon scrawler, it sounds like I'm messing up the words dungeon crawler, but that's because it's meant to be a dungeon scrawler. And here's some art, I don't know where this plays in the game. I don't know whether this is on cards or just general art to tease you the game. I don't really know, but I'm interested all the same. Then we have the following is going to be Siege of Runedar. The Siege of Runedar is going to be coming from Reina Knizia, and this is going to be a deck building game where you play as a bunch of dwarves who are trying to defend your horde, your castle, from invading people trying to get their hands on your gold. I know a few things about this game, not a ton. I know the art is from Andrew Bosley. I love games with art from Andrew Bosley. That's not true. I love the art of Andrew Bosley, and I hopefully like the games he puts out. Sometimes I do, sometimes not so much. I know it's designed by Reina Knizia, and that on its own is not enough for me. Reina Knizia is a household name in board games, but he's also a household name because he's designed thousands of games, and he has 30-40 of them that are notable or great games. So Reina Knizia on his own is an impressive name, but not an insta-buy for me. But you combine the art of Andrew Bosley, the name Reina Knizia, the deck-building game, which is something that I generally like, the 7.7 currently on Board Game Geek, granted only 40 ratings, but that's still something. That's still a degree of people who are invested or buy into the game, and I'm incredibly interested in the Siege of Runedar. Is it a game that's going to work for me? I don't know. Deck building games have come and gone. Deck building games have some of, in fact, one of the most recent deck builders that I've added to my collection is going to be the Quest for El Dorado from Reina Knizia. So overall, in general, his games, his lines, they are certainly appealing, and his last foray into deck building has worked for me and has become one of my favorite deck building games. So I'm interested, I'm intrigued, I'm paying attention, and I'm definitely going to be trying to get my hands on the Siege of Runedar. Next up, we have Silver Coin Age of Monster Hunter. And this is not a game I know a lot about just yet. What I do know is this is a game that seems to be operating in the same realm or genre as a game or as a system of The Witcher. This is a game where you are monster hunters. You're going to be fighting unique monsters. You're going to be drafting your characters, your equipment, your starting, all these different things, while you try, or bidding on, not drafting, you're bidding to acquire these different things before you dive into this world and start trying to fight and hunt down different monsters. That's as far as where my knowledge ends up right now. What I do know is when I was covering The Witcher, when I was doing reviews or coverage gameplay for The Witcher, I had tons of comments from a variety of people who had played this game, from a variety of people who have dived into Silver Coin Age of Monster Hunter, and were like, no, you should be looking at that game is amazing. So first of all, The Witcher's amazing. I'm just telling you because I've played one of those 2 games and I really enjoyed The Witcher. That said, it doesn't disqualify Silvercoin: The Age of Monster Hunters from being amazing. It may well be a great game. Anytime someone is passionately advocating for a game, unless of course it's the person who made the game, I'm interested. I'm paying attention. Why are you so focused and energetic with the fact that I should be paying attention to Silvercoin? It's likely because you've played it and you want the rest of the world to see what it is that you see. I know that feeling. I have that feeling all the time whenever I cover a game that isn't doing as well as I think it should be, and I'm like, back this game, it's so good. It's really, no, believe me, it's really, really good. And so I get that feeling. I get that push to show the world what you're talking about, and I had a lot of comments consistently telling me to check out Silvercoin: Age of Monster Hunter. And so when I saw this was at Essen, it was one more in a long line of reasons that I'm sad that I'm not going to Essen this year. And they did just upload a video, so you can have a how to play video on Silvercoin: Age of Monster Hunter. It is longer. It's going to be like around 50 minutes or so you have to be invested to dive into it. And it has a lot of prototype art components, whatever it is in it, because this is very much prototype stage. But overall, that's going to be Silvercoin: Age of Monster Hunter. This is going to be 1 to 5 players, 1 hour per player, although that can be a scary number if you actually have a 5-player game, 1 hour per player, 5 hours for this experience. I don't think I'd want to play that, but I can play it at fewer players, so I'm okay with that. In fact, Witcher is a good example of this. The Witcher is a game where I think would shine for me at 2 and 3 players. I think more than that would really bog down the experience for me, so 5 is definitely not something that appeals to me. But you can check this out, links to everything down below, in case you want to subscribe for whenever this one shows up at Kickstarter, or in case you're going to Essen and want to stop by their booth and find out more. Next up, we have Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition. This is a good time to tell you that I did rank this list in order of least excited to most excited, with the exception of Far Cry, which I'm pretty excited about, but we have no information, nothing at all, not the slightest, so I left it all the way off the edge of the list. But past that, these are in order of least to most excited, partially because of the games themselves, partially because of the accessibility, which ones I believe we'll see play more often, or which ones we'll see play right away. So either way, Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition, this is a game I've been excited for a long time about this game, because this is a game that, I mean, I played the original Clash of Cultures back in the day. I liked it a lot. I've talked about this game, Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition, in a few videos by now, because, well, the theory or the premise of the game being around has been a thing for a while. It just hasn't really, been showing up on people's tables quite yet. But this is going to be, as you might imagine, the Monumental Edition from Clash of Cultures, put out by WizKids, which is a bit of almost a little sad to see that. WizKids is a great company, but they're a little harder. They're a little step removed, I guess, from direct, I don't know, either way. But Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition is going to be giving you the expansion bundled in. It's going to be combining Civilization, Aztecs, the base game all in one single box, giving you all the content for a game. Ideally, they've been streamlining the rules from the original game. The original games, there's a solid system, with some aspects of the game that were a little unbalanced. A good example is going to be tech trees. Some of the tech trees in the original game, I felt, my own feelings don't matter enough, but my own feelings and the general population's feelings felt some of the tech trees were a little unbalanced, or some of them just weren't worth diving into, which removed some of the fun from the experience. Overall, it was a game that I really enjoyed, and a game that I was super excited when I heard they're coming with a new, aggregated experience for Clash of Cultures Monumental Edition. I'm incredibly excited about this one, and really need to get this once it's actually publicly available. Next up, we have It's a Wonderful Kingdom. A Wonderful Kingdom, which I happen to be going to the Kickstarter page, but this, I imagine what you see at Essen, at Spiel, will be the retail edition, although maybe not. Maybe they'll have both. Either, I don't really know. Either way, It's a Wonderful Kingdom is a game that is weird to be on my list here, because It's a Wonderful World is a game that I really, really liked, but eventually passed on from. Although I will say, It's a Wonderful Kingdom and my desire to dive back into that has me wanting to get back It's a Wonderful World, and I very well might get that one back, because I enjoyed it back in the day, don't get me wrong. It's not, The Wonderful World is always a good game. I never did a full review of it. I did do a Play This Not That between Seven Wonders and It's a Wonderful World, although this is back in the day when my Play This Not That consisted of me holding 2 boxes, and that's really it. Not that my B-roll has gotten much better, but at least I have the game set up on the table now when I actually do them. But either way, It's a Wonderful Kingdom is going to be the 2-player version of It's a Wonderful World. It's a Wonderful Kingdom is, it's giving you, it's 7 Wonders duel to 7 Wonders. It's giving you a lot of the same gameplay mechanics and genres while being totally different at the same time. It is the same and yet different, and it's a game that I I really found myself being incredibly pulled in, both by the art. It's the same artist, but I love his look or his appeal when it's being applied to this kind of less modern approach and more of a medieval piratey, knights and everything approach instead. So I love the art. I love the application of the art. I love the mechanics that they had talking about the game, the various traps and pulls, and it seemed like it was a different kind of beast than It's a Wonderful World. A degree of tug of war, a degree of push and pull, of entrapping your opponent, of trying to manipulate the game state, combine that with a bunch of expansions and everything else, and it looked like it was giving me everything that I don't know. I always liked It's a Wonderful World. It's not that I didn't like it, but it's like this seemed to be everything I liked about it, but pulled me in far more. I'm very excited for It's a Wonderful Kingdom. I'm very excited to see whether this one is a keeper in my collection, or perhaps like It's a Wonderful World, it might be another really good game that I eventually get rid of, although like I said, I am trying to get It's a Wonderful World back. Next up, we have Paleo, A New Beginning. This can be Paleo, ein neuer Anfang. The Anfangen, the beginning. A new beginning, Paleo, a new beginning. Your tribe has fought bravely and left the Paleolithic age behind. A few thousand years later, you have developed splendidly and made a whole new series of inventions. This is an expansion to a game I really like. Now, granted, it's a game that I really like that has a variety of modules you can shuffle in to give you different gameplay experiences, and I haven't even gone through all of those. Although this seems to be a huge step outwards from that. This seems like the kind of thing that I would add in even from the get-go, even without having fully explored the base game. Because it gives you a form of tableau building to your game, a form of you can start building and developing crops, you can start really growing your civilization and not just surviving in the wilderness all the time, living moment to moment, living a woolly mammoth giant to wounded woolly mammoth giant to finding shelter one day to dying in the woods the next day. This gives you a degree of some form of tableau building, of some form of build-up in the game, and it looks amazing, looks great. Paleo is a game I really enjoy. I had a review of it recently, a game I really enjoy, and an expansion I'm looking forward to. This is going to be Paleo, A New Beginning. Then we have Golem, pronounced either way really, but Golem is going to be a game. This Golem is going to be coming to you from Cranio Creations. They brought you Barrage. They have a whole bunch of games. I'm trying to remember what else they have. They have Barrage, a bunch of other games that I don't remember offhand, but Golem is a Euro experience. Golem is a heavy Euro experience. This is coming from Virginia Gili, Simone Liciani, and Flaminera Bassini. I apologize if I butchered any of those names. And this is a heavy Euro experience. This is a game that I already had the chance to play this one online. I already had a chance to dive into this, and this is a game where you are controlling your golems. Your golems are, slowly getting more and more powerful as they wander up these tracks, and you're trying to manage their strength, because the more powerful they get, the better it is if you can control them. But the more powerful they get, the harder they are to control, and the further down they chase, and eventually they have to be torn down and deconstructed because they get away from you. The golems are helpful, but also, well, they represent a force that you cannot control, and they apply that to this game really well. It's a heavy Euro experience with a ton of different pathways as far as which way you're going to try to push and pull on the levers of the game, which channels or paths you're going to go down. This is one of those Euro experiences where you feel like you don't have enough time to get everything done, and then round 1 you get this much down, and round 2 you get that much down, and then round 3 you get that much, and round 4 you get that much done. There's a ton to be done, but it's going to escalate every single round. You're going to be trying to get your engine up and running around 2, but the amount of points you'll actually get from your engine around 3 and 4 as you go through your puzzle, as you try to figure out whether the combination of spells or pathways, not really spells, but abilities or pathways, or improving your golems, or any of the different options in this game as you go through it. It is a heavy Euro. It is a ton of fun to play. I'm looking forward to actually getting my hands on a physical copy of this one and playing Golem. Then we have Hanamikoji, Geisha's Road. And Hanamikoji is a game that I absolutely adore. Hanamikoji is one of my favorite two-player experiences, giving you a bit of a I cut, you choose mechanism to the gameplay. It's going to be a game where you have these different sets of cards in your hand, and you're going to be playing these different tokens down, and those tokens are going to define, okay, I'm going to put down 4 cards in 2 sets of 2, but then you're going to pick one of those sets. It gives you a real tug of war, real hard choice as to how you manipulate your opponent to pick things when they're given the choice first. You're cutting the cake and they're choosing the slice, so how do you cut it in a way that whatever they choose is not opportune for them, that whatever you choose is what you want? And Hanamikoji Geisha's Road seems to be giving a lot of the same gameplay to that puzzle. If you read through the rulebook, and the rulebook is available, it seems to have that same mechanism at play, that same mechanism of having a handful of cards, of playing different tiles, of pairing them up, but then it adds another aspect, another layer to the game of these geishas as you wander around trying to stop your geishas off at the right spots. So it seems to be the same core gameplay while adding an element on top of it. Now, for better or for worse, I don't yet know. I don't know if that's going to be more fiddly or more unnecessary to a game that I think think is amazing as is, or perhaps it's a better, improved, streamlined experience. I can point to different games multiple time and time again. I can point to games where they tried to make something better and it was worse, and times where they tried to make something better and it was better. If you take Cockroach Poker and Cockroach Poker Royal, I prefer Cockroach Poker Royal, which added an extra layer on top of a game that was already amazing. And then I'm sure I can come up with other examples of games that weren't amazing, but not offhand. But there's plenty of games where the subsequent version, I mean, even I guess you could pick larger games where I still feel Zombicide Black Plague is the core Zombicide experience for me, the one that gives me the best Zombicide experience, and subsequent Zombicides haven't yet delivered that same level. So ideally, I'd have an example with something smaller and more manageable and more relatable, but for right now, I don't. So yeah, either way, I'm excited about Hanamikoji Geisha's Road. It's just what the question to me is whether it's a good game or whether it's it's not a question of whether it's a good game. It's a question of whether it's a good game that replaces Hanamikoji, a good game that is not going to be kept because I like Hanamikoji better, or a good game that lives alongside, giving me enough of a reason to have both of these in my collection. And then lastly and finally, the number one spot is going to go to Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders. Lost Ruins of Arnak was my number one game from 2020. It was my number one 2020 experience. I'm pretty sure 2020. But either way, it was a game that I really, really enjoyed, really loved. It was a game I was looking forward to. It lined up right there with Endless Winter, Paleo Americans, although Endless Winter is not currently available to have in my hands, although it seems like sometime soon I will be able to. Although Lost Ruins of Arnak, I loved. I want to dive back into this whenever I have a chance. I need to pull this out and play with my wife. It's been a few months, which is way too long for a game that I like this much. I haven't even dived into the solo mode yet, and I've heard it has a good solo mode, good app integration, good whatever it is for giving you a solid experience. It's a game that I absolutely adore, and I just wanted more from it. I wanted more variability in terms of more cards, more artifacts, more of all that, and they did that. They actually have a rulebook you can download now if you go to Board Game Geek. They just uploaded the rulebook a few days ago, and it gives you more stuff. It gives you more items, more artifacts, assistants, levels, idols, guardians, sites, more of all that stuff. And then it gives you more gameplay mechanics at the same time. It's going to be giving you expedition leaders, like the name of the expansion says. That's going to give you different roles that give you different ways that you can navigate or push or pull the game forward in, your own unique special ability. Which means, basically, Lost Ruins of Arnak is giving me the same game, but it's giving me more ways and more things to get the job done, which is what I always wanted from the game. I always wanted that drop more of an engine building, that drop more of just getting a few more cycles of whatever it is. And any form of ability or anything they add to the game can do that. This is a game where the game is 5 rounds long, but I frequently want that 6th round, although not enough to have actually just chosen to play a 6th round. The nice thing with the game is if I ever actually do want a 6th round, it's not hard to house rule that you just play that last round one more time. It's an easy house rule. I haven't felt the need to because I always want more, but I'm worried that if I give myself more, I may not actually want it anymore. One of the fascinating things about games is you always want to leave the player, you always want to leave them wanting to get a little more done, wanting to be able to do a little more. Games that you actually can do everything end up being not quite as fun because the challenge, the puzzle, the desire to jump in and figure out how to be more optimal is taken away from you. Which is why I've chosen to never really add that extra round, despite wanting that extra round. But hopefully this gives me that feeling, this taste. Hopefully this gives me enough of a extra oomph to the game, enough of an extra thing going on for a game that I already gave a 5 out of 5. That's not the question. The only question is whether Lost Ruins of Arnak Expedition Leaders is even better, or, it's got to be better, right? It's got to be better. But either way, that is going to be the list of the 10 games from Essen Spiel that I am excited about. 11 games, technically, but there were a lot more. This list had to be cut down from like 25 or so. I went through the Board Game Geek page. I tagged everything I was remotely interested in. The truth is, if I go with remotely interesting, I was cutting this list down from like 50 games that I was interested in. But there are all these different tiers. There was Hippocrates from Game Brewer. There's going to be they had the Stroganoff from Game Brewer. They had a whole bunch of games that I closed all the tabs already, so I forgot all of these. But there were a lot of games at Essen Spiel that I was excited about. A lot of games that I both don't know about and may become excited about as I learn more, as well as games that I'm currently actively excited for and would love to be able to get my hands on a copy to be able to play it for, or some of them I've already backed and I'm just waiting for them to show up at my doorstep. But either way, this has been my top 10 list of what I'm currently excited about from Essen Spiel, and let me know what I missed. Let me know which games let me know which games have you excited. What have you seen about Game X or Game Y that has you wanting to be at Essen if you're not already going, or something you're going at Essen and you're going to be taking a look at and trying to see? Because I am sure there are games I missed. There are plenty of games on that list of 482 games that I didn't even recognize the name. And so I moved past it. I wasn't going to look into 482 games, so I went with what I already knew about, at least for this list. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a good one.